Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive where we're going to break down a pretty dramatic emergency landing that happened at Belfast City Airport. It happened on a really stormy Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, it sounds like a rough one.
Thankfully, nobody was hurt, but as you can imagine, it caused a bit of a stir. We've got a really detailed BBC News article here outlining everything that went down. So our mission today is to try and figure out exactly what happened, why this matters, and what we can all learn from it.
You know, one of the things that makes this incident so interesting is that it wasn't actually a packed flight full of passengers. It was what's called a positioning flight.
Ah.
Basically just an empty plane being moved to a different spot for its next scheduled flight.
Oh, so it's just the crew on board then?
Exactly. Yeah, just the crew. 4 crew members, to be precise.
Right.
And luckily, they were all unharmed.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. But even without a full cabin of passengers, this emergency landing still had kind of a domino effect on air travel that day.
Well, I can imagine. The article mentioned something like 40 flights were disrupted as a result.
Yeah, almost 40 flights were impacted. Some had to be canceled altogether, while others were diverted to nearby airports like Belfast International. Some even had to go all the way to Dublin.
Wow, Dublin. That's quite a ways away. So what happened to the plane itself? I mean, you can't just push a plane off the runway after something like that.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. It turns out moving an aircraft with a collapsed nose wheel is a pretty delicate operation. The Dublin Airport Authority actually had to send a specialized team with equipment all the way to Belfast just to help extract the plane.
That's kind of heartwarming to hear,
Yeah.
airports helping each other out in a time of need. But I want to go back to the beginning for a second. The article mentioned strong winds being a factor in the landing.
Oh, yeah, definitely a factor.
So can you kind of paint us a picture of what happened?
Sure, yeah. So picture this, right? An Aer Lingus plane operated by Emerald Airlines is coming in for a landing at Belfast City Airport. The wind is swirling, making for some seriously tricky conditions. And as the plane touches down, the impact is just way harder than expected. This causes the nose wheel to buckle, and the plane ends up, well, with its nose on the tarmac.
Oh, wow. I can only imagine the jolt the crew must have felt. The emergency response, the BBC article mentioned police, fire crews, ambulances. It must have been quite a scene.
Oh, it was definitely a full-scale emergency response. The airport went into a temporary lockdown and, everyone was on high alert. Thankfully, it turned out to be more of a logistical challenge than a safety crisis.
Okay, that's good. Speaking of challenges, what about the passengers on those diverted flights? What happened to them?
Well, it wouldn't have been a pleasant experience, that's for sure. Imagine arriving at Belfast International, which was already busy handling its regular Sunday traffic, only to find out that dozens of additional flights have been diverted there.
Yikes. Delays, cancellations, missed connections. The ripple effect must have been huge.
Oh, absolutely. And the article even mentioned that Belfast International posted on social media that they were nearing capacity.
Oh, wow. So we have a plane stuck on the runway, dozens of flights diverted, and an airport nearing capacity. What happened next?
Well, Belfast City Airport remained closed for the rest of the day, and it was expected to stay closed until Monday.
Wow.
That's a major disruption to their operations. And the article pointed out that the airport's advice for passengers scheduled to travel Monday morning was, well, a little vague. Basically, just check our website and social media for updates. Not very reassuring if you're trying to plan your trip.
Definitely not. So we have this dramatic incident, widespread disruption, and a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
But the story doesn't end there, right? What about the investigation? I mean, they can't just assume it was the wind and move on.
Oh, you're right. Anytime there's an incident like this, a thorough investigation is needed to determine the actual cause. In this case, the Air Accidents Investigation Branch, or AAIB, is leading the inquiry.
Okay, so tell me more about the AAIB. What exactly do they do?
Well, the AAIB is the UK's independent body that's responsible for investigating civil aircraft accidents and serious incidents. Their job is to gather evidence, analyze data, and ultimately determine what factors contributed to the incident.
So in this case, they'll be looking into whether it was purely the wind, or maybe a mechanical issue with the aircraft, pilot error, or even a combination of factors.
Exactly. They'll be looking at the aircraft's maintenance records, the weather conditions at the time of the landing, the pilot's actions, and any other relevant data to piece together what happened.
So while we're waiting on the results of that investigation, let's talk about the bigger picture here.
You're talking about those diverted flights. It really does highlight how interconnected our air travel system is, doesn't it? An incident in one location can create this domino effect across multiple airports and airlines.
That's a great point. And it makes you realize how even a seemingly minor incident, because luckily no one was hurt in this case, can have a huge impact on the aviation industry and travelers. It's like a delicate ecosystem.
Exactly. It reminds us that even with all the technology and safety measures in place, things can still go wrong. And when they do, it takes a coordinated effort from airports, airlines, and emergency responders to manage the situation and get things back on track.
Okay, so we've covered the incident itself, the immediate aftermath, and the ongoing investigation. But there's another piece of the puzzle here that I want to touch on.
You're thinking about climate change, right? And all those, extreme weather events we've been seeing.
Exactly. The article mentions strong winds as a factor in that hard landing. It makes me wonder if, incidents like this could become more common as we see even more extreme weather patterns.
Oh, it's a valid concern for sure. Climate scientists have been warning us for years that a warmer planet means more intense storms, stronger winds, heavier precipitation. And, all those factors can create some seriously hazardous conditions for air travel.
So it's not just about, dealing with the aftermath of these incidents. It's also about being proactive and adapting to a changing climate.
Exactly. We need to be thinking about how to make our aviation infrastructure more resilient.
Okay.
So that means things like strengthening runways and airport buildings, investing in better weather forecasting tech, maybe even, redesigning aircraft to better handle turbulence.
It sounds like a whole new set of challenges for the aviation industry.
Yeah, it is. And it's not just about the industry itself either. Think about the impact on passengers like you. More extreme weather could mean more frequent flight delays, cancellations, disrupting travel plans and causing all sorts of ripple effects.
That's a pretty sobering thought. It makes you realize that we can't just take things like smooth air travel for granted. It really is a complex system.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. And, this incident in Belfast, while relatively minor in terms of damage and injuries, it serves as a really valuable reminder of just how complex all this is. It highlights the importance of, being prepared, both in terms of emergency response, but also adapting to a changing climate.
Okay, so what can we learn from all this? What are the key takeaways here for our listeners?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's a reminder that even with all the safety protocols and technology we have in place, air travel just isn't completely risk-free. There's always a chance that something unexpected could happen.
Does that mean we should all be afraid of flying?
Oh, no, not at all. Flying is still one of the safest modes of transportation out there. But it does underscore the importance of staying informed, being prepared for potential delays, and just packing your patience.
It also makes you appreciate the skill and dedication of the people who work in the aviation industry. From the pilots and crew to the air traffic controllers, ground staff, emergency responders, they all play such a critical role in keeping us safe.
Absolutely. And we can't forget the investigators either. They work tirelessly behind the scenes trying to understand what went wrong and how to prevent things like this from happening again.
Yeah, their work is crucial for, constantly improving aviation safety. It's fascinating to think that even a seemingly minor incident like this can spark such important conversations.
Yeah, and lead to valuable lessons learned.
It's a great reminder that we should never stop learning.
And striving to make things better.
And that applies not just to aviation, but to any complex system we rely on in our daily lives. So this emergency landing in Belfast was more than just a news story. It was a glimpse into this intricate world of aviation, the challenges it faces, and the resilience of the people who keep it running.
And it's a reminder that even in the face of unexpected events, we can still learn, adapt, and continue pushing forward.
Well said. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the human element of this story. Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in all the technical details and the logistical challenges, but at the end of the day, there were real people who were involved in this incident. The crew on board, the passengers who had their trips disrupted, the emergency responders, the airport staff.
You're absolutely right. And, while we're really fortunate that nobody was injured in this particular event, it's important to remember that incidents like this can be just incredibly stressful and disruptive for everyone involved.
I can only imagine the relief that the crew must have felt when that plane finally came to a stop, even if it wasn't exactly a graceful landing. And then the realization that they're stuck there on the runway, waiting for help to arrive.
Yeah, it must have been a very surreal experience for them. And then, think about all those passengers on the diverted flights. Many of them were probably already stressed about holiday travel. And then suddenly, the plans are just thrown into disarray, facing delays and uncertainty. Some might have even missed important connections.
It's a good reminder to be kind and patient with everyone you encounter during your travels. You never know what kind of challenges people might be facing behind the scenes.
That's such a great point. We often forget that the people we interact with at airports and on planes are just doing their jobs, often under really, really difficult circumstances. A little bit of understanding and empathy can go a long way.
Okay, so we've explored the incident itself, the impact on passengers, and the aviation system. And we've even touched on that human element of the story. What's the big takeaway here for our listeners?
Well, I think this whole deep dive just serves as a powerful reminder of how interconnected our world really is. A seemingly isolated incident in Belfast can ripple outwards, impacting people and systems way beyond that immediate location.
It's also a reminder that we can't just take things like air travel for granted. It's a very complex system. It relies on this delicate balance of technology, human expertise, and a bit of luck.
And while we can't control everything, we can certainly do our part to be informed, prepared, and resilient when we do face those unexpected challenges.
So there you have it, our deep dive into that emergency landing in Belfast. We unpacked what happened, explored the ripple effects, and even, pondered some bigger questions about climate change and what this means for the future of aviation.
I hope this was insightful for everyone, maybe even a little bit thought-provoking.
If anyone's eager to learn more, I encourage you to check out that full BBC News article. It's packed with even more details about the incident and the ongoing investigation.
And until next time, remember every journey, no matter how turbulent, offers an opportunity to learn and grow.